The market spent the week grinding lower until JP's Jackson Hole speech hit the wires Friday morning. In one session, the S&P erased days of losses, printing a seller's shutoff pattern right at the highs. Traders leaning short into that weakness got squeezed. Traders who stayed patient and recognized the setup saw the reversal coming. Welcome to Market Edge, ahead of the trade. Today we'll break down the ETF action, dig into a key trading lesson on sellers' shutoff patterns, and finish with a look at the MAXLIST names leading the charge. Friday's reversal changed the tone of the week. The S&P clawed back to all-time highs, the NASDAQ lagged, and the Russell surged on hopes of lower rates. Sector rotation stood out. Financials and consumer discretionary led, while technology and staples lagged. Now let's go to Pat Walker for the full ETF breakdown.
Great organization. Look at the ETFs. What ETFs are strong? You find a strong ETF, you're going to find strong stocks in that group. So let's take it from the top. Here we go. Energy, Direxion Energy, ERX. Weekly on the left, daily on the right. What do you see? Well, it's picking up a little bit, but there's a lot of overhead supply here. Not a real leader at this point in time. It is improving, so just something to maybe put in the back burner. Dow Jones Internet, that's hanging in there. You see on the weekly, oh, look, that's near highs. Near weekly closing highs right here. What does this tell us? You can punch up FDN and find out what are some of the leading stocks in the Internet group. We already know those at Mission Winners, but this is what we do, and it'll help you. Internet, something to watch. IBD 50 starting to pick back up a bit. Look at the big tail bar here. That's positive. Fell hard and closed in the top fifth of its range on a pickup in volume. Looks good on the daily. IBD 50, great proxy for growth stocks. Continuing onwards here, gold miners, that looks pretty darn good, doesn't it? And it has for a while. Note the base on the weekly right here. Note the base on the daily right there. Simple base, lifting off, following through. Yes, note the volume pickup coming in here, increasing volume, breaks out on heavy volume, heavy weekly volume. That's a great setup, folks. That's one to commit to memory and say, this is what I'm doing. I'm going to key on this, and you'll increase your potential for making money. Looks good. We're just letting it work. Key point, though, don't chase price up here. If you don't own it, don't buy it up here. This is a very important lesson. I taught at the IBD meetups for years. Buy close to the pivot or don't buy at all. Chasing price can lead to larger losses. We don't want to do that. Continue on. Now, gold is not really doing that much, is it? Gold miners, oh, there's strength there. Gold, not a lot of power. So which ones do we own? We own gold miners. Now, you can see why. Cybersecurity, no power there. Be cautious with that. Biotechnology is picking up a little bit. Maybe looking at some biotechnology stocks. Online retail looking pretty good there. Gosh, what's an online retail stock? What is that? Oh, yeah, Nile.com. No, Amazon.com. There you go. Looking pretty good. Yeah, we own Amazon too. You'll see it in the MAXLIST video. Software technology still kind of sloppy here on both the weekly and the daily. It says be a little cautious with software. Medicine looking good. Look at it picking up on the weekly. There's a downward sloping trend line here, and we'll take this off, and I'll show you another line. Right? There. Take these tops out. On the daily, it pushed a little bit through the highs. That's the weekly bar. This is the weekly high right there. Pushed a little bit. What was one slight negative on the push through? There ain't a lot of volume there, Pat. You're exactly right. Also, note this. This is the stuff we teach at Mission Winners right here. And it's the real world. It's not textbook. Up on decent volume, fell on heavier volume. Lifts up, but not a lot of volume power there. Volume tells us that other people see it and they're buying it. They're really not at this point in time, so be a little cautious right there. Let's continue onwards. Mid-cap's picking up. Look at that longer base right here on the weekly and the daily lifting up. What does that say? Hey, you might want to look into some mid-cap stocks. You might want to punch up IJH and look at their top 10 holdings. That's being organized. That's what we do at Mission Winners. Help people get organized. Aerospace and defense is just facing. You say, oh, that's a green bar, valuable lesson. Look at where it closed on that bar. Closed near the lows. There's not a lot of power there, and there's quite a bit of red bars. So it just tells us something. Be cautious with aerospace and defense. Construction's picking up here a little bit, trending nicely up the ADMA. and the 21 EMA. Some overhead supply over here, but it is looking decent. Had good volume on Friday. Look at that. Now let's think this. Home construction. Gosh, when you're buying a house, most people have to finance it. Yeah, that's called a mortgage. Yeah, that has interest rates associated with it. Why do you think this picked up heavy on Friday? Well, they're talking about, interest rates. They're not going to raise interest rates. There you go. Connecting the dots. That's the kind of stuff we do at Mission Winners. It helps us. IBW, S&P 500 growth, kind of hanging in. Looks all right on the daily and the weekly. Not too bad. Trending nicely, and it has for a while. And that's why we own growth stocks. Small caps picked up. Look at that. Pick up on Friday. On volume. What does that say? Well, we can delve into another area. We don't have to just look at the large cap or mid cap stocks. We can take a look at smaller cap stocks, Russell 2000 stocks. And again, organization and systemization. Real estate's picking up here a little bit. You can see that base right here. I'll show you something here too. This is why we look at both. It's a pretty long base right there, folks. There we go. You say, well, I don't see it there. That's because that's a daily chart. It just shows this part right here. There we go. But push through these tops. What does that say? Maybe looking at some real estate stocks. Here we go. Transportation picking up. That looks good. By the way, do you see the common theme here? There's more and more groups that are improving, that are looking better. Show strength in the markets. It's not just like one or two sectors that are leading. There's numerous sectors that are leading. Again, what's that indicative? It's showing their strength in the markets. And we like that. Airlines picked up a little bit across these tops. This is why I love, again, weekly and daily. You say, oh, I see this little base right here. Look at the weekly company handle. Isn't that neat? And what else? It lifted off on a pickup in volume. That's good to see. Airlines, regional banks, look what this did. Banking is and real estate, very responsive to interest rates environments. They come out, Powell comes out and talks about, rates, not going to be pushing up or anything like this. Look what this baby did. There you go. In the bank sector too, on a pickup in volume. Now, I'm not saying buy it now, but I am saying it's something to watch going forward. It's exhibiting strength. There we go. Which leads to another very important lesson. There's a pivot price right here on the weekly, and I'll draw this to help you on the daily. Across these tops, just simple tops, folks. If you have to look for it, it's not there. I said that at IBD meetups for years. It's pretty easy to see, isn't it? You could draw it with a crayon. I wouldn't do that, but especially on your computer monitor, bad tuna. Anyway, lift it up on a pickup in volume. Banking stocks are improving. That's good. Looking at some banking stocks. Insurance, interest rate sensitive, picking up a little bit. But notice, this lifted up on a volume pickup. Insurance, this lifted up. There's no volume there. Be careful with insurance. We need to see some volume power there. Volume, again, tells us other people see what we're seeing, and they're acting on it. They're buying it. Regional banking, interest rate sensitive. Look at the pickup on that. There we go. Let's continue onwards. Mid-caps picking up. That's good to see on volume. Looking at some mid-cap stocks. Pointing this out right there. There you go. Oil services picking up a little bit, but a ton of overhead supply here. Here's mid-cap. You can see it's near these recent highs. Here's oil services way below these recent highs. So yes, it's picking up, but not a leading group at this point in time. Be cautious with that. Pharmaceuticals picking up just a little bit, not a lot of power. Watch out for pharmaceuticals. QLD's picking up a little bit here. That's nice to see. Look at the volume that came into that on Friday. NASDAQ 100, MAXLIST type of stocks. Right there, that's power. You look for things like that. NASDAQ 100, MAXLIST. Love the MAXLIST. You'll get a video on that too. QQQ, same thing as QLD. Retailing's just steadily picking up. I'm not saying buy this, okay, because look at all the gaps in here. But I am saying you could look into some retailing stocks. It's showing strength on the weekly and showing strength on the daily. Continue on. Cloud computing, it's pretty sloppy here, folks. There's a ton of overhead supply. Look at all the whip in this. Oh, there's not much there. Boom, gap down. Oh, it goes up, reverses down. That tells us Investors are not sticking with it. Any sign of weakness, they're selling. Stay away from stuff like that, because if you own it and they come in, you can get stuck with a larger loss. Don't do that. This is called a wide and loose pattern here, chart pattern, indicative of higher investor emotions. Be cautious with that. Focus on tight basis. Bill O'Neill talked about it at the level 3s. Tight basis and level 4s. Here we go. Silver's picking up a little bit. That's nice to see. Slight pickup in volume. Kind of gappy in here, though. It's not a clean and simple tight base. Be aware of that. Continue onwards. Steel's picking up a little bit, but look, there's no volume. There's no power there. None. Volume again tells us there's conviction. There's not much there. Be cautious there. SMH picking up but awfully loose. Be careful there. Semiconductor, same situation at SMH's semiconductor. Got spiders picking up here. Going across these tops here, hitting right, touching all-time highs. How about that? On a pickup in volume, S&P 500. What does it say? Hey, it's lifting up here on a pickup in volume. Yeah, you might look into some S&P 500 stocks. And again, team, and this is for everybody. Admission winners, we want to be organized. I don't want to look at a million different charts. I just want to look at charts that are going to help me make better investing decisions, hopefully make more money, and be safer too. Here we go. SSO, same situation, picking up. One slight drawback here. Not a lot of volume there. Okay? I'd like to see a little bit more volume coming into it. Continue on. Solar's picking up. Look at that. Look at that lift off the 21 EMA right there. Look at the volume. Lifts up. Pulls back on less volume. Starts to pick up again. You might want to look into some solar stocks. Or the ETF. Okay? Small cap picks up. Look at this. This is a leveraged one. Look at it, lifts up. Look at that volume spike. That right there is a green light saying, hey, you might want to look into some small cap stocks, or you might want to buy me. You might want to buy the TNA. Now, it's a little bit extended now, okay? But again, admission winners, we combine price action with volume. Volume is the way to measure conviction or lack of conviction in an area, in an ETF. Continue on. What does this one show? Watch this. Oh, that's hitting highs. That doesn't look too bad. Small caps. Oh, that ain't nothing. Stay away from oil, energy stocks. Isn't that great to know? It's like, God, I want to look at a million different charts. I don't want to look at a million different charts. I just want to look at the ones that are the greatest candidate for making money. Leading groups. The leading groups, and then the leading stocks in those groups. Admission winners, that's what we do. That's what we teach. Aerospace and defense just kind of basing here. It needs to push through that white line on the daily. XBI, biotechnology, just kind of whipping around. Okay. It looks okay, but not great. Kind of loose. Be careful with that. Moving on here. Hang on. Let's refresh that. There you go. And then it lifted off here a little bit on Friday on a pickup in volume. There we go. Continue onwards. Home builders. Looking pretty good. Like the other home builder ETF we looked at. Tells us, oh, maybe looking at some home building stocks. And think about this. You're going to buy a house. Like I said earlier, most people need to get a mortgage. They need to finance it. Interest rates. Falling interest rates, common sense, but a lot of people don't pull all this together. I'm sure you all do. Falling interest rates means, hey, I can buy a house because, the mortgage is going to be cheaper because the interest rate's lower. Home building stocks. That's connecting the dots. I'm not saying buy it here, but that's a good lesson. How do you build houses? Well, you need materials, right? Look at that long weekly base. This is just part of it on the daily. I'll do this for you to help you. There you go. Just going across these tops here. Needs to push through with volume. One slight negative. Took a lot of power just to get up to the pivot. Okay? Used a lot of energy, a lot of buying energy just to get up there. And that expended energy. You'd like to buy stocks that... Here's a good investing foundation for everybody. Try to buy stocks that don't have to go up a country mile just to get to the pivot. Okay, or make a big move just to get to the pivot price. All right, that will help you a lot. That's not an opinion, that's a fact. XLC, oh, like when this broke out, it didn't really have to go up too much to break out, did it? Right there, very little, pennies. Okay, now it's up here, it's extended, ran up, pulled back, starting to lift up again. Maybe looking at some communication stocks. XLC's picking up a lot of overhead supply. Kind of cautious with that. All right, energy, wide and loose. Another important lesson here. Look, it runs up and drops like a rock. Runs up to the same level and drops like a rock. Runs up, doesn't even get to the highs of the old level, and drops like a rock. What does that tell us? All through here, folks. Up here and through here. Through these highs. Through these highs. What is it telling us? There's a seller up there. There are sellers. That sounds like a conspiracy. There are sellers up there. Every time it runs up there, it drops. Don't argue with that. All right. And it's awfully loose too. Be cautious with that. And again, on these videos, I try to educate. Financials picking up a little bit. Financials, look into that. Industrials picking up just a little bit. Not too bad. Technology's picking up a little bit, but still kind of lagging. That's something to think about with technology. Consumer runs up. They take it right back. It's loose. Be careful with consumer staple stocks in that ETF. Utilities are just basing right here. Take out these tops. This one is very interest rate sensitive. Something to consider. Healthcare is acting decent. You know, you can see it. Just kind of basing here and lifting up a little bit. Not a lot of volume there. There's no clean entry on it there. Right here, though, is there? There is none, just for what it's worth. Look for clean entries. Consumer discretionary is trending nicely. No real clean entry there. Metals and mining picking up. Not a real clean entry. But it is showing, these are showing strength, team. Okay, it's not like, oh, this isn't a downtrend. No, there's just not a clean entry at this point in time. Oil and gas has a base, but look at all the overhead supply on the daily and overhead supply on the weekly. Be careful with oil and gas. Energy. There we go. Retail's picking up a little bit. Good volume coming into this. Look at the nice trend there. Maybe look into some retail stocks. There we go. We're almost done here. XSW software still lagging here a little bit. Kind of sloppy on the weekly, kind of sloppy on the daily. Again, we like to focus on chart patterns. This is really important. Focusing on chart patterns that are not volatile, that are not wide and loose, that are not whippy. All those things show lack of investor conviction. They're in and out. They're buying it. They're selling it. We don't want that. We want to buy things that are just settling down, nice, tight, consistent patterns. The tug of war between the buyers and sellers is at an equilibrium point, and then we just wait for the buyers to take over the sellers, and it lifts off and breaks out of the base with volume.
Friday's rally created what's known as a seller's shutoff pattern. That's when one strong green bar erases multiple red bars from earlier in the week. The message is simple. Sellers got cut off and buyers took control. It's a bullish sign if it holds. But the bigger question is, what kind of buying drove that move? Was it old business or new business? Old business is short covering. Shorts get squeezed, prices spike, and then momentum fades when the fuel runs out. New business is fresh institutional money stepping in. When new business is behind a rally, you see volume, you see stocks hold their gains, and you see leadership emerge. That's what we'll be watching this week. The S&P may have shut off the sellers on Friday, but for the rally to stick, new business has to show up. Financials, discretionary, small caps, and gold miners are already showing strength. The real test is whether the MAXLIST names, Apple, Amazon, Google, Tesla, NVDA, can attract real buying and lead. Don't confuse one big candle with lasting demand. Sellers may be shut off, but without new business, the move won't last. Volume and leadership will tell us if this rally is the real deal.
So here's Apple picking up a little bit. Again, weekly on the left, daily on the right. What did it do Friday? It lifted up, it pushed through the 8 EMA, that's the yellow moving average, and it did it on a pickup in volume. If this follows through, could be a potential candidate. By the way, notice, I already have the price alert set on this. See a little green hash mark? Another key lesson. I'm going to make this bigger to show you something. Oh, but Pat, and this isn't a stop, it's an alert. Pat, it's not at the high. You're a little early. Of course, let's think this through. And again, we taught this for years at the meetups, IBD. Folks, don't set your alert. If this isn't a stop, it's an alert. Don't set your alert at the high. Set it a little early. That way, if it goes off, you can watch the stock closely as it starts to push through a pivot. There's no frantic, oh God, it's doing it now, I got to look. No. Frantic action clouds thinking and judgment. We don't want that. We'll make better investing decisions. All right, let's continue onward. So there's the Apple. There's Amazon picking up. See this bouncing here off the 50-day moving average line right there? Look at the volume pickup. Gapped up, pulls back, lifts off, and runs. And yes, we bought Amazon. We're in Amazon a couple of times. And it's working. It's working. There we go. Now, what am I looking for? Well, I've already got the price alert set. Here's what I would like. If you own it, if it pulls back and then takes out Friday's highs with volume, we will probably add to it. Okay? I said probably. Those constraints must be met, and it's going to need a good market. The M in Mission Winners comes first. The markets. And we don't argue, we never argue with what the market's doing. Okay? But this is a good start. We'll watch and see what it does. Now I stress, this is a pullback bounce setup. This is not a long base breakout. This is riskier. Okay? It's less reliable. How do we control risk or lessen risk? If we buy, you go a little smaller. There we go. Let's move on here. There's AMZU, lower level one that you could possibly get involved with. If you don't have the money for Amazon, you can do AMZU. There we go. There's Baba picking up, Alibaba. One slide negative, runs up here, and that baby gapped down right there hard. It's lifting up again though, okay? And you can see there was a volume pickup. See the tops here on the weekly? And I'll draw this. I'll just continue this out. I'm going to clean this line out here. And just show you, but again, this is what I used to teach at the meetups, and it works. There you go. Take out these tops. What does it need to do? And again, this is Alibaba. It needs to take out this top with volume. One slight negative is there was a gap down here, pretty big gap down. Wasn't on heavy volume, but it was a gap down. Be aware of that, okay? It's riskier. How do we lessen risk is if we buy this? You buy less shares. Again, on these videos, and this is what I do at Mission Winners, I don't want to just give ideas. I want to coach. I want to educate what to look for in the charts to make better decisions. That's knowledge power that'll change your life. It's something you use forever. Now, here's BIDU. It's a little sloppier. Look at BABA above the key moving averages, right? Here's BIDU. It's kind of whipping around here. Back, look, it goes up, drops, goes up, drops, whipping back and forth. That indicates high investor emotions. Be a little cautious with that, okay? BIDU, be a little cautious with BIDU buying it. FBL, that's pretty sloppy. Really not much going. It's bouncing off the 50-day, and it did it on a volume pickup. But it's kind of sloppy. I'd be careful with that, okay, at this point in time. Google's picking up. Note, base breakout back here. Shows it here on this daily chart too. Picked up here, in here, a couple of times, and it's trending nicely. If, see that upper alert? I can lower that now. If this takes out the highs of this bar, notice the volume that came into it on Friday, folks. If this takes out the highs here, this could be a potential add-on for us. There we go. Not a new buy, add-on. Now you can say, well, Pat, it's a big weekly cup. I agree. It's more V-shaped, which is a little riskier. Also note, it made a pretty big move, large move, just to get to the pivot price here on the weekly, right? It expended a lot of buying power. Given that, how can we lessen risk? If you buy it, go smaller. There we go. We own it already, so when we buy, we're not going too heavy. You always buy less than what you own. Never pull your average price up too high, as I said. Goldman Sachs picking up here a little bit. See that base breakout on Goldman Sachs right here? This worked out. It's basing here. If it starts to take out the highs here, this is owned. Okay, full disclosure. It's owned on this bounce here too. Look at the volume pickup. Price alert set. Raise the lower alert a little bit. Excuse me. I'll just put it there. It's not a stop. It's just alert. Let your computer be your eyes too. Just being organized, disciplined, focused. There we go. Goldman Sachs looks good. If this continues following through with volume and a good market, we'll probably buy more. MasterCard steadily trending up. Not in this one. I think some VIPs are maybe, but It's just steadily trending up. No safe entry up here. It's a little too extended just for what it's worth. Meta is kind of whippy here, folks. Be cautious with that. When you see charts going up and down and up and down, that indicates high investor emotions. Be careful. You don't want to get stuck on the wrong side of that, okay? So it's just basing here. We'll have to watch it. What's one saving grace with it? It's bouncing off the rising 50-day, and there was a slight volume pickup on it on Friday. So something worth watching. If it takes out Friday's highs with volume, could be a potential buy. But go smaller. Remember, base breakouts like this have a much higher success rate. They're safer. They're more reliable than pullback setups. There you go. So given that knowledge, what does that mean to us? Well, if one is a little safer than the other or safer than the other, if you buy the safer one, the safer setup, the symbol base breakout, you could buy a little bit more shares. You go a little larger when you're buying it. There we go. At Mission Winners, that's what we teach. I'm big on risk control, folks. Here's Microsoft. I got to refresh this chart real quick. Hold on. There we go. Weekly on the left, daily on the right. There's a valuable lesson for everybody. Oh, look at that gap up. Boy, oh boy, that's huge. I'm buying that sucker. This is why I say constantly, be careful chasing gap ups. Right there, that would sting. That would really sting. You'd be down about 50 bucks, 50 points. All right? Don't do that to yourself. Be careful chasing gap ups. Now it's bouncing off the 50-day. Let's think this through. Do you think there were people that bought this up here? Well, yeah, of course. That's where it went. Price was there. Yes, they did. It does here. When this starts to go back up, it will be met with what's called overhead supply. Be careful with that. All right? A lot of overhead supply here on Microsoft. Every time it goes up, there's going to be sellers saying, oh, I'm back to break even, I'm selling. You got to be cautious with that. Let's continue onward. Netflix is kind of sloppy here, fell on fairly heavy volume, whipping around, not in a real leadership position at this time. NVIDIA, bouncing, pushing through the 21 EMA right here on a slight volume pickup. We own NVIDIA from down lower. It's kind of sloppy here, just not real clean. If it takes out Friday's highs with heavy volume and a good market, could be a potential buy. But it is not a simple entry. It is a more aggressive entry. It's riskier. How do we lessen risk? If we buy it, you go smaller. There you go. NVDL, same situation. Look, by the way, why do I show this? Well, you can buy NVIDIA at 177 bucks, or you can buy NVDL for 87 bucks. Basically the same thing, you can get a little cheaper. Tesla's picking up here. Tesla MAXLIST stuff. I love this stuff. I mean, how much do I love this? I don't know about you. That's a pretty good move right there. Like 200 points. We owned this. Okay. Now, it's just lifting off right here. Is there anything to do with this? Hold on, we're going to refresh this. There we go. Got to go back. I apologize. Okay. So it's basing right here. There's a line here. There we go. What do you notice about it? Well, it bounced off the 50-day. That's the green moving average line. Institutions use these moving averages, folks. Okay? It's our edge. We know what they use. I used to teach it at the IBD meetings. It's basing here. Volume coming into it. If it takes out this top with volume, that could be a potential starter buy. Starter buy. In all instances, this is for everybody. You never buy a full position at one time. Never. Don't do that to yourself. Ease into the stock. That's cancel level 3 and 4. TSLL, same situation. You can buy Tesla at a lower price. Okay, the equivalent of Tesla. Visa's picking up, but there's no real clean entry on it here. I know it's pushing through the 50-day. Didn't really do it on volume. It's just kind of sloppy here. I'd be cautious with that.
And that wraps up this week's episode of Market Edge, Ahead of the Trade. Big thanks to Pat Walker for another sharp analysis, and to you for being part of the Mission Winners community. If you found this helpful, be sure to subscribe on YouTube, visit missionwinners.com, and keep your edge sharp heading into earnings season. Stay focused, stay selective, and as always, master your strategy, trust the process, and maintain your edge.